Recording. All right. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for a very special roundtable featuring the stories and voices of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color who have brothers and sisters with disabilities. My name is Emily Hall, and I'm a sibling and the director of the Sibling Support Project at Kindering, located just outside of Seattle, Washington. The Sibling Support Project is the first national program in the United States dedicated to supporting siblings of people with special developmental, health, and mental health concerns. We've been supporting siblings for almost 40 years, starting with the first Sib Shop back in 1982. We are pleased that Don Meyer, our founder and the creator of Sib Shops, is here with us tonight. We would also like to thank Kindering's Ho Young Win for providing IT support. As sibling awareness and support have expanded over the years, so has the need to ensure that our universal sibling community is truly inclusive. We know from thousands of posts in our online sibling communities that connecting with other people who are walking similar paths and who truly get it when it comes to the challenges and rewards of having a brother or sister with a disability or health concern can be life-changing in the best possible ways. We also know that there is much more room and a whole lot of welcome for siblings of color and other siblings from traditionally underrepresented communities who have not historically participated fully or at all in these groups. The Sibling Support Project is so proud to partner this evening with Special Needs Siblings and the Sibling Leadership Network, two organizations, outstanding organizations, who share our belief that the sibling community is strengthened by the diversity of our members and who are committed to promoting equity and social justice throughout it. We recognize that there's limitless opportunity to work together to break down barriers created by institutional, structural, and individual racism that have stood for far too long. We are excited to build new bridges of understanding and hope to ensure that all siblings, including and especially siblings of color, have access to information, resources, and peer support that empower them to support their families and themselves. We hope that tonight is a first step in this direction. With that in mind, we would like to thank each of our panelists for your generosity and courage in sharing your stories. We'd also like to remind everyone that this is intended to be a safe space where we all respect and appreciate one another. And we ask you to please listen and learn with open hearts and minds. Please remain muted and with your camera off until the Q&A at the end of the discussion. You're welcome to write questions in the chat at any time, and they will be read during the Q&A. It's now my pleasure to introduce our participants in this evening's roundtable. Jeniece Dortch is our moderator for the evening. Jeniece is the founder and executive director of Special Needs Siblings, a unique Georgia-based nonprofit with a global vision to raise awareness, support, and resources for siblings of individuals with disabilities, one family at a time. Lisa Matthews is the DC chapter representative of the National Sibling Leadership Network. Lisa is based in Washington, DC. Angela West Brown is a consultant, author, and IEP life coach with ARW Brown Educational Coaching Services, LLC. Angela is based in Georgia. Patricia Portis is a full-time student at Bishop State Community College in Alabama. Patricia is pursuing her degree on the path to becoming a registered nurse and eventually opening a center for people with disabilities that supports their health, individuality, and independence. Richard Mullen works with the ARC of King County in Seattle, Washington. He is the African American Family Support Coordinator and enjoys supporting families with loved ones who have physical and/or intellectual disabilities. And finally, last but not least, Shannon Lewis is a senior at Cedar Hill Collegiate High School in Texas, who anticipates graduating in June of 2021 with her associate's degree in science. Shannon serves as the International Vice President for the Common Black College Application Student Ambassadors Program. She also serves as the President of the Dallas National Association for the Advancement of Colored People Youth Council. She is the recipient of numerous prestigious awards, and after high school, her plans are to attend a historical Black college or university so that she can pursue her dream career as a physician assistant. Jeniece, it's my pleasure to turn the mic over to you and to take it away.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you so much. Thank you all for joining us today for this one of a kind event, something that's not been done before, that is long overdue. And I'm really excited to be here. I am a mother of 6. I have a son that has autism and epilepsy, and he has 5 siblings that support him, that love him. I am coming here as a parent, and I am here to listen and to learn from these amazing siblings on this panel that look like me. So first, I would like you all to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you. Lisa, let's start with you.
Okay, thank you so much, Jeniece. And I want to also thank Emily as well as the National Sibling Leadership Network for the opportunity to be a part of this important roundtable. So as Emily mentioned, I'm here representing SLN as a member of their board as well as the DC state chapter representative. I wanted to just say a little bit about SLN, and it's really an organization that provides siblings of individuals with disabilities with information, support, and tools to advocate with their brothers and sisters and to promote the issues important to them and their entire families. And I plan to share a little bit more about how you can connect with that organization later, as well as an upcoming event that they'll have in 2021. A little bit about me. I came to this space as a sibling. I have a brother that is a year younger than me, and his birthday is tomorrow, so I'm so excited about that for him. But I live in Washington, D.C. My brother lives with my mom in Capitol Heights, Maryland. I've been working and championing with him for about 10 or 15 years. I came to this space in working with him as a result of a domestic situation that happened in the home, to where fear was honestly my guide in how I got to be part of these organizations that I've been affiliated with over these years. I started participating in state, local, and national organizations just to get the tools and resources that I've needed to be able to be at the table with him at his IP meetings and help give my mom support. My brother will be 50 years old tomorrow. And during the times where my mom was trying to seek services for him, things were very different than they are today. My mom pretty much went with whatever was told to her by systems. And as a result, she was in and out of places with him and getting the services that he needed. And it was just a revolving door that just was exhausting for her. When I stepped in to begin helping my mom, clearly I wanted to be able to help give her some relief, but also to give my brother the quality of life that he deserves. And in doing that, I learned that there are just so many other people out here that also need the guidance and support. And so I've been affiliated not only with SLN, but also I'm the former chair of the DC Developmental Disabilities Council. And I also work to help support their state plan. So I'm at the table to be able to support some of the activities and programs at our local level, which is awesome for me. My brother has autism, and so I connected with the DC Autism Society, and I was able to publish newsletters and just be a voice with many families that does look like me, but it gave me the empathy that I needed to help my mom help me understand the challenges that my mom had. Because I think as a sibling, you come from it with one lens. As a parent, it's another, and sometimes it just doesn't always talk well the same way. And I believe now that my mom and we are working towards being in a good place and knowing that our ultimate goal is to be able to help support my brother. I'll stop there for now and pass it on to someone else, but I'm looking forward to the conversation with everyone this evening.
Thank you so much, Lisa. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing about yourself and your brother, Mike. Angela, let's talk. Introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Angela West Brown, and I am a special needs sibling. My sister is about 3 years younger than me. I started this journey because my grandmother didn't have the tools or the resources to help support my sister as she transitioned out of high school. When I was in college, that's when a lot of the issues started. When she was graduating from high school and I was in my sophomore year of college, my sister began to run. Any of the special needs siblings here know what a runner is. So she would constantly run away. And it got to a point where it was very stressful and challenging for my grandmother, for the entire family. And it got to a point where she was lost to the streets, involved in different activities. I wrote my book, Lost and Found, to talk about the struggles, but also to provide solutions, also to provide resources and tips and strategies that I've learned along the way working for ABD Disability Services, and beginning to learn and become an IEP consultant and transition strategist, and starting to design a pathway for families not to actually go through what we went through, to have a better chance of giving that early preparation and that early start for their siblings that I didn't have. And so as a result of all of this, my sister ended up having a baby. And family adopted my niece. We're raising her as our own. I love my husband for that. And not only do I talk about the sibling perspective, but I also talk about the generational perspective, because my great aunts, they both have intellectual disabilities as well. Mm-hmm. So being in that type of dynamic, it gives you a different perspective, not only just being a sibling, but also having, being the oldest sibling, and then having that dynamic of your parent or your grandmother leaning on you more. In my perspective, in my position, my grandmother leaned on me to be the person, the go-to person for different things. So not only do you have that added layer of being the oldest sibling and being that go-to person for your parent or your guardian or your grandparent, but also being that go-to person for your adult aunts, which I don't want to go too deep into it, but as you all can see, usually your aunts are the pillars that you go to for that extra support. So you are just the support all the way around, not only for your parents, but for your grandparents, for your sibling, and just trying to help people understand what's happening. And on top of all of this, not knowing who my father was, that's a perspective that we have to look at in our demographics as well. We have other layers. Fatherless home, raised by my grandmother. My mother wasn't really involved in my life. So a lot of that responsibility fell on my grandmother. And then it came back onto me once I became an adult and in college and married, and trying to come back and say, okay, grandma, you did the work up until this point. Now let me take the charge and see what I can do. But then you encounter so many different levels of red tape, because your sibling has reached the age of majority, where at this point, if you haven't put anything in place, such as guardianship, any of those different legal dynamics in place, your hands are tied. And so I'm going to stop right there, because I can tell I'm about to go. And I'm going to pass it on to the next sibling.
Thank you. We're going to get back into your conversation now. Richard, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Okay, so my name is Richard Mullen. I currently live in Seattle, Washington, and I am the African American Family Support Coordinator at the Arca King County here. I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota. I am the youngest of 4 brothers. My sibling was the second oldest. He had cerebral palsy and speech delay. He was on the autism spectrum and he had other challenges as well. We moved out here to Washington when Washington wasn't developed much. It was 1986, coming from Minneapolis, Minnesota, Black family, my mom, my dad, my brothers, and we experienced extreme culture shock. I would say, in Minnesota at that time as a young kid, because I was only 6 years old, so I was just getting into school. I felt supported. I had all of these resources. It was great. And we got out here, and it wasn't that way. And so this is where I began to see what real advocacy looked like. My mother was a fireball. She's just that real advocate. My father, provider, he showed us what hard work was, but my mom, also hard work, but she had the advocacy side. She taught us how to stand up for ourselves. you know, how to do everything we need to do, how to iron your shirt, do your laundry, you know, how you need to know how to cook something, you know, at a very, very young age. So having a brother with different disabilities and witnessing her raise him alongside us, it really shaped us, it formed us, it really blessed us, because I feel that it gave us another perspective on life, on just being a person, and persevering and working through challenges. And so as I got older, this really affected a lot of the things that I got into. So I always had a knack for entrepreneurship. My parents knew that, so they always fanned that flame. So I started a candy store because we didn't have a lot of money. We really didn't, because 4 kids moving out here, you know, there wasn't a lot. But seeing those things, seeing how my mom was leading, how my father was there, and they encouraged us. Started a candy store in our apartments at 8 years old. I was cleaning up. It was great. I was hooked on entrepreneurship, went to school, went to college, got out of college, and started a company, and was going really well, but I still needed seed money. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna get into the disability community. So I started at an employment agency where I would go out into the community or create profiles, go out into the community and get individuals with intellectual and physical disabilities jobs. And so because I loved the idea of going into stores and doing presentations and things of that nature. So I was getting, you know, my caseload was there. Everyone was getting employed at Microsoft, Target, Walmart, you know, the thrift stores. And my business was doing okay. It's still a small startup. And so I was going to leave that and jump fully into it. But then the Arc of King County said, hey, we see that you're shifting. We need someone to support, you know, the African-American community here in the city. Would you be willing to come alongside us? So I did that. And I'll just say that once I got to really see what our families were going through in the school system and in the communities and how little support they were getting, it reminded me of my childhood, but it also made me have to ask myself a question as far as, am I going to be able to sleep at night if I say, nah, I'm not going to help my people? Nah, I have something to offer, but nah, I'm going to go ahead and do what I want to do. So I joined onto the team, and I just really appreciate the opportunity to just be a blessing to my Black people, just be a blessing to my mom, the moms out there that are like my mom and different than my mom. You know, we all have different experiences, but you know, it's something that has really blessed me. So that's who I am, and that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Yep. Patricia, introduce yourself to us. You might have to unmute yourself.
All right, so I am Patricia. Can you hear me? Okay. And I now reside in Mobile, Alabama. I'm gonna give a little bit of backstory so you guys can understand. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, so my siblings were born in Illinois. My eldest sibling is the one with the disability. He has cerebral palsy. He's total care. And we were living in Milwaukee at the time, and during the time I'm not gonna say what year I was born, but during that time, much like some of the other siblings, there was not a lot of resources for anyone with disabilities, especially in a small town like that. So we migrated to Georgia in 1996. And much like Richard, when he migrated, there was a culture shock for us as well. We weren't used to being in the schools that we were. There were a lot of people who looked like us there. So my brother was still in school at the time as well. And my older siblings were in high school, and I'm in middle school. He always was in special needs classes, and there were teachers there that you knew cared, teachers there that you know they didn't. So my mom ended up really homeschooling with him, and she taught us a lot about him and what we needed to do. At a young age, she taught us how to take care of him, because she always told us he's always going to need one of us. And I was always the sibling, not to put myself there, but I was always a sibling that went a little bit of an extra mile because I saw most of the time the care that was offered for adults and children with disabilities, and it just discouraged me. And I said somebody has to do something different, and that's why I put it off for a while, because being a sibling, as we know, there's times where you get angry. There's times that you're like, I'm not getting the attention that I want. I'm tired of doing this. This is, you just sometimes just want to step back. But watching my mom sometimes just in her room crying, and I'm sorry, I'm an emotional person, but just watching her crying because she couldn't get the care that she needed, for him. And there's a lot of things that she couldn't do because at the time we were in our, growing up in our teenage years, we're at that selfish age, like, that's not my responsibility. We're doing what we wanted to do at the time. And she's just like, we need help. I need help. So there was a point in time where we did end up putting my brother in a group home. It did not work out. He was there a week. People there stole his clothes because he's nonverbal. There was no one there to advocate for him. They were stealing his clothes, stealing his medicine. He's also diabetic, so his insulin. There were other people there that needed those things. So we took him back home, and that's when we started getting in-home care for him. And there were like they said, revolving door in and out of those who came in to help take care of him, because you have people coming in your home, and it's supposed to be where you can leave them there with the family member, but there was no trust. So we would stay there. And then as I saw how discouraged my mom was, and she did everything she could, and my mom and my dad, I won't say that he was the provider, just a lot like Richard. He was more of so working, but as I saw the care, I just said, I can't. I can't ignore it anymore. I have to stand up and do something about it. So I stepped up with my mom. I actually ended up in my adult years moving back home to help her take care of him. They now reside in Tennessee. So, even now still, if they need anything, if they want to go on vacation, if they want to have a break, I will leave and go sit with him. Or, I'm actually excited because they'll be here tomorrow coming down to visit. But yeah, and my brother's birthday is next week on Thanksgiving as well. So he'll be 46. But that's what got me back into school to go get my RN degree. I'm getting my degree now at a HBCU, Bishop State Community College. After graduation, I plan on opening a facility for adults and children with disabilities that, like I stated, we have those times when we need breaks, and I'm going to give that opportunity for the siblings, the families, and the individuals with disabilities. I want them to feel like they have somewhere that they can be that is just for them. And that's really it. That's just me.
Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate that. Shannon, will you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for me?
Yes, so my name is Shannon Lewis, and like Ms. Emily said, I'm a senior in high school, so I last year. So my inspiration and motivation comes from many various places. I have a younger brother who is 8 years younger than me, and he is autistic on the autism spectrum and has a learning and speech delay. And like I said, I have many different inspiration motivations. One being my parents, seeing that my brother was diagnosed with autism. He wasn't diagnosed at birth, but he was diagnosed later on once he started going to elementary school, and just seeing my parents really just trying to make sure that he has the greatest, the best therapists and teachers, and making sure that he has people really willing to help him. I'm from Dallas, Texas, so there are various resources that we have. And then I also just kind of get my inspiration from other teams that may be in my position that just kind of, are looking to see, it's not just me and I'm not alone. Because I know when my brother was first diagnosed, I had a lot of thoughts that went through my mind, like, how could this be? And, what if I'm not the best sibling? Or, what can I do, to be the best sibling? And so I just kind of get my inspiration from those, those aspects. And also, like Miss Angela said, my mom my uncle is special needs. So just kind of seeing it from different aspects, and just wanted to use my outspoken personality to really just give back and be an advocate. Every year I help out with the Think Y'all Be Light fashion show, and that's basically just to give those with special needs, children, you know, the space to be who they are without being judged or looked at, because I feel like sometimes in the individuals in my generation, or just individuals in general, they kind of just are on the outside looking in. But, you know, with me being a sibling and a niece and actually seeing it, you know, I understand and I feel for those that are looked at as different. And so that's just a little bit about me. And I just want to thank Ms. Jeniece for having me on the panel today. And thank you for all the other panels as well, panelists.
Well, I appreciate you all introducing yourself. Thank you so much. I cannot wait to get into these questions. But first, I want to ask everybody, Emily is going to drop a poll for all of the participants. So we want you to let us know who you are. We want to know who's with us in this space right now. So if you would just fill that information out for us, and we're going to continue this conversation. But I wanted to, you know, she's dropping the poll. You should be able to see it, answer it, and press submit. Thank you so much. Now, let's get into this. You guys kind of started answering these questions before even your introductions. And I really appreciate you guys just being transparent and letting your guard relax. We're all together. This is a conversation. We're family. So I want you guys to think about challenges and opportunities that your brother or your sister's disability caused you growing up. And given the recent events that have been going on in society and why we're even here having this a BIPOC conversation, thinking back, thinking about that, have you thought about your sibling experience in a different way? And I'm going to start this conversation with Richard.
Oh, okay. I get to start it out. Okay, wow, that's a loaded question, but I'll address it like this. One, I didn't share this. My brother passed away when he was 24 years old. I was 14 at the time, and you know, I don't know. Just when you, I just can speak for myself, but when that happened, it really just shaped a part of me. And so it changed me. And I'd worked through a lot of different things, but it's almost like those years that I had, I ponder, I look back and I ponder those years, and I play those years back. And so I would say in this current scenario that we're in, this current culture, the culture that we're in and the climate that we're in, my thought goes towards, and I guess this is the opportunity, my thought goes towards just being able to embrace someone's humanity, just the idea that we're human, and we come with our own barriers and challenges, but just the idea that we're human and we have a purpose and we have a destiny, and those things can be fulfilled. And I just feel like in this hour, in this season, those thoughts have helped me. And I've witnessed someone with challenges from a very early age overcome so much. And that is just, it gives me fuel now. But just the idea of, regardless of who you are and what challenges you have, you are a person, you are a human being. And so I would just start there. I would say that's something that has really affected me. And I think that's something that we need as we come together as a community, and as we learn from one another, and as we grow, just acknowledging that we are people. And I think that's a really, really important aspect.
I can jump in here. I think for me, this year has definitely been so telling in the things that have happened, that has just definitely created this racial divide. And for me, in thinking about my brother, it has definitely given me a moment to pause and think about the truism of what is my role going to be in making sure that he is safe, that he is secure, that he doesn't become victim of any of the circumstances that we see before our eyes. There's some things that we can't unsee. And when these things have happened, I instantly am thinking of my brother. My brother, the role that I began playing in being part of the disability space, it came from my brother being part of the judicial system. There was a situation that happened in our home where my brother ended up having a second-degree assault charge. The police came into the home and they took my brother to the station only to diffuse a situation as what they had said to my mom. And as I stated earlier, my mom came from a place where she just typically trusts authority. She didn't know how to advocate for herself. She just came from a time where she just did what was expected or what people expected her to do. And she allowed them to take my brother. I didn't live at the home at the time. And when the sunrise the next day, she calls me in a panic because he's not at home. And she says, well, they told me that they're going to bring him back. And I said, well, Mom, what happened? And she told me everything that had transpired that evening. And my brother is very fascinated, not only with NASCARs, but also with police and the police cars. And he's looking at this as just a mere joyride. When the police officers that took him ended their shift, they went home. We don't know what questions were asked of my brother before a magistrate, but he apparently gave the wrong answers. He ended up in an overnight stay in jail. He said he didn't eat. We don't know what other things happened to him. That was my wake-up call. I knew then that I needed to be more involved. My mom, when she would go to his IP meetings over the years, I would ask how things went, and it seemed as if they were just changing the date on the paperwork, and that was just pretty much it. And I didn't know what the space looked like, but I knew that it pained me to think of my brother being part of a system that I couldn't get him out of. And so I started trying to navigate and start trying to figure out what it was I can do in this space. And I started tapping into a lot of the local organizations here in Washington, D.C., to not only learn about my brother's disability and how it impacted families, but also just for me to have the support that I needed. And so through that is where I connected with the DC SIBS group. It's a group of just other folks that are in this space that live in the Maryland district and Virginia area, that we just kind of got together sometimes and just was able to just talk and try to figure things out, not only for ourselves, but how we can help and support our families. I think that the opportunity that this all has created for me now is just not only helping my mom find her voice and supporting my brother, but also helping me to be able to be at the table in different spaces so that I can start trying to challenge those that are creating the different programs and things, what things can look like and should look like for people that do have disabilities and how they can better support the families. And I'll stop there.
I appreciate that, Lisa. I did not know that. And that is such a big part, like, of the system that we don't have control over. And we can speak for ourselves. And me as a parent, I can, but that's a whole different perspective coming from a brother or from a sister. And so, does anybody else have anything? Angela, would you like to answer that? How are you feeling and the circumstances going on now?
In my perspective, when I'm thinking about this, I'm in Lithonia, Georgia. I didn't mention that earlier. And by my sister being a runner, and this was almost 14, 15 years ago, I was always fearful that she would not come back home. And whether it was, I didn't know how the police would respond to her, because even though I don't know what her actual diagnosis was, I just know her mannerisms and how she interacted in the world. A lot of times people wouldn't understand if she was doing something out of the norm. We all know what those triggers or different things look like for our siblings, and we know what to do to calm them down. But if you're nowhere around to calm them down, you're hoping that it's going to be an angel standing by. I'll call them angels because, I mean, that's all that's been protecting my sister is angels and people manifested in people around her. And I'm just hoping that when she's having a moment that someone, and that's been the case at this point so far. But I just think back to this happening almost 15 years ago up until this moment now, that each scenario when she was arrested or detained or whatever situation where she interacted with the law, because at this point it's not only our young Black boys or our young Black men, it's our young Black girls, our young Black women, and it's added layer when they have a disability or a mental challenge. It makes me think about how we're trying to at a political level or at a more of a legislative level of creating a social, I don't know if you all have heard about it, but it's first responders that are not police. It's more social workers. So you've heard about that. So that's what my mind goes to, helping families to understand that during the IEP meeting and when you're creating a plan of action for your child when they get out of high school, start thinking about how would that look even when they're interacting out in the world when it comes to their legal rights and advocating for their right in society, and that they're a human and they deserve to be here no matter how their differences may present themselves when they're interacting with others, because all disabilities are not visible, number one. Number two, that I think about the extra layer of having a disability and then having the racial layer and that tension as well. So I start thinking about that, making sure that families understand that we have to create a community surrounding their child, and as adult siblings, creating that community surrounding the sibling to ensure that when they go out into the community, that there's some safeguards put up to prevent what we've been hearing in the news. And I know we can't prevent everything, but just from educating others, like this panel, what we're doing today, educating, which will help. So I want to end there.
Thank you, Angela. Shannon or Patricia, do y'all have any feelings regarding what's going on right now and your sibling experience and looking back now in the challenges and anything that went on growing up or even now what's going on?
Angela was making some very valid points because she brought me back, because I didn't mention on here, but I did mention earlier, with me managing group homes with adults with disabilities. I've attended hundreds of ISP meetings, and I was that voice for the individual because, you know, you manage the home, this like you become their family. You become that person that you speak for them, and which is why I got into it, because like I was saying earlier, they need the voice too. They need the help, especially in these group homes. There's a lot of people there where they are nonverbal, or, you know, they're older, and, you know, they don't have the capacity to stand up or speak for themselves. And there are some ones that were there that did have some behavioral issues where, you know, they were runners, and I have several stories about that, but they were runners, or they were had autism, or, you know, something that was there that'll trigger, or someone that did something that would trigger because they can't, you know, advocate for themselves or maybe communicate it to other people. The police did get involved, and, you know, when she said they need more training, or someone is there that has the capability to deal with them and diffuse the situation rather than us getting shot because they don't know that person has an intellectual disability. As she stated, like, all disabilities are not visible. There are very high functioning people with disabilities that you would not know. Having a conversation with them, unless you actually know their diagnosis, you would not know that they have these issues. And if they were to get involved in something, and a lot of them, the only time you can tell that they have a disability is when things like that happen or erupt, or, you know, they get into a behavior where they are angry and they can't express themselves. And I've been to these meetings where, like she stated, it's just a stamp on the paper changing the date. The goals aren't met, you know, there's nothing that they're doing to help them evolve. which is why I want to have the facility where I'm going to have the facility that I plan on opening, because even with me working in those group homes, I taught classes on how to make homemade laundry detergent, cooking classes, teaching them how to sew, home things that they need. Those who are gonna go out and, you know, are eventually able to leave these group homes, if they go out on their own, those skills, they need those things, and they need to know how to conduct themselves in front of, you know, police officers and things like that. That education is so much needed for this community, not just for, you know, us, it's for them as well, more so for them. And, you know, for us to be able to teach everyone around us how to handle those situations, not just be fearful of it or, you know, ignore it, or, you know, because there's times where, with, like you stated, when being younger, how it affected me with going to school with my brother. And I never mentioned this, but going to school with him, I had to ride the short bus. And I said, you know, I did, because he was, you know, the disabled in a wheelchair, and people would laugh and snicker at us, because as a family, we rode it together. But I was proud, because I was like, I don't have to ride the bus with all these bullies, you know, on the other buses. But, you know, I'm here with my brother. I'm here. A lot of people just don't understand. And it starts in the home. You educate yourself, you educate your children, you know, then there's an opportunity for them to be accepted without just being judged, you know, because you never know. You never know. You don't know how that person who has a disability feels, and you don't know how their siblings feel. You don't know, you know, there's a lot that goes into it that everyone needs to be educated on. And I feel like that education is there, and us being here on this panel is just awesome, because this, like you said, it really needs to happen. It really needs, everyone needs this education. But I'll stop there and let Shannon speak.
Hey, Shannon.
Hey, all the panelists really just hit on spot on. One thing I would say with, you know, everything going on in the media and what we're seeing now in the 21st century, it just kind of reminds me back to the death of Elijah McCain, and how, you know, I was reading up on that he, you know, he said he was different, and everyone looked, you know, everyone said, you know, he's different. He wouldn't even kill a fly. And, you know, for that situation to happen, it kind of puts me in a perspective of my brother. If, you know, one day he gets of age and he's able to be able to just, you know, go somewhere with his friends, or just, you know, by himself, and then a situation comes to where a police officer, you know, deals with him that type of way, it just kind of, you know, it's hurtful. And I kind of worry about my brother, with him not only being African American, but being a male. And, you know, with autism, a lot of people, you know, if I tell my friends like, hey, it's autistic, and I'll share my experiences with that, they'll be like, well, I can't tell. And it's like, you know, if they can't tell, the police may not be able to tell. And so, you know, when I just think about everything that's going on, I just pray that, you know, if my brother ever has a ability to be able to go somewhere by himself, or, you know, with his friends, that, you know, the situation will be handled how it needs to be handled. And, you know, they will be able to tell, you know, just basically off of a simple conversation, or, you know, with them being able to research. And I feel like there should be programs put into schools or colleges, you know, just to bring more awareness about special needs. Because in school, it's kind of like, okay, the special needs children, they go to their own classes, and we don't interact with them throughout the day. And then when you know, it's time to go home, they get on the bus and they go home, and that's just a repeat. And I just feel like there should be different programs and awareness, you know, events and organizations that should go on into school. So that way, once you learn it early on, you can be able to take it into adulthood. And with me transitioning into adulthood, I just feel like that's something necessary that should be taught in schools, because I just feel like with those with special needs and siblings of special needs to individuals, we know what's going on and what's going on in the, you know, the household, but those that are on the outside looking in don't really know much about what's going on. So that's just my take on that.
Well, I appreciate that, Shannon and Patricia. Now, you guys, everyone did a poll, so I want to let you guys know who we have in our audience, so you guys can have a feeling of who we're talking to. We have over half siblings in the audience, and we have over 40% professionals. So we have people that are in a provider type of space, or they might be serving individuals, maybe siblings. So we don't know about, you know, where they're at, but we have a pretty mixed group. And I think that that's says a lot about them coming in, even having this space to listen and to learn from you all's experience. Now, we talked a lot about what's going on and why we're here and in this space today. I want to move forward to what can we do as a community, where we're at, because we have our own things in our culture, in our community. As a parent, and looking back now, I realized that my father was actually a sibling as well. And I didn't really hear from my uncles like that growing up. And that space of educating, and how does that look? And how do we kind of move forward? And I know Richard spoke about human, like we're all human, we're in this space. But I want you guys to give us a little bit, how do you think that white individuals of color, as we're moving forward and we're creating these opportunities to include our voices, how can we move this conversation forward? What can we do to make something happen? Go ahead, Richard.
I would like to say that when just, our siblings, individuals with different abilities in the community, I feel like it's very important for us to listen to them and have conversations with them in the context of, what do you want to do? What do you want your life to look like? And that's going to be different. That's different for everyone. But I feel like as allies of individuals who have different barriers or different abilities, that conversation, that relationship, initiating that and being genuine about that and using the skills that we all have to help someone else achieve their goal, and not something that we think they should be doing. So what I've seen in the disability community is there's so many people that would say they're advocates or they're supports, and they're trying to help somebody do something that they think they should be doing. And so I feel our efforts should be informed by the individual that we're trying to be a blessing to. And I think that also crosses over into other ethnic backgrounds, individuals that have different, skin color and upbringing and economic status. I think those initial conversations, those real conversations of, okay, who are you? And this is who I am, and then work from that place. So originally when I said acknowledging that, a person is a person is I feel the first step of actually being able to have a real conversation and try to see the world through their eyes, and in some ways, in a lot of ways, hopefully unify and add value. So.
Thank you, Richard. Is anybody else? How do you feel about this, Lisa?
I definitely agree with Richard that listening to understand is just so key, no matter what space we're coming from, to come into different networks of wanting to be a part of trying to support our brothers and sisters, as well as other people that have disabilities. One of the challenges that I've often had, which is why I'm so thankful to be part of this roundtable, is that in the number of years that I've been in this space and the different organizations that I've been a part of, one of the things that's been a challenge for me is that there are not a lot of people in those spaces that look like me. And what I have found sometimes is that I tend to still lose my voice because I don't think that I'm going to be heard in the same way, or that my story matters in the same way. And I don't take that away from the work that's happening in the different organizations, because I definitely have found a number of champion of friends and supports and allies with different things that I've figured out in trying to support my brother and other people. There are listservs and networks of just being able to reach out to a core group of people that are genuinely willing to help. It's just something that I feel that if there were other people of color that are part of these conversations, that especially in this past year, I think that it will help folks understand a bit more why the work that we're doing is important and why it does look a little different for from backgrounds. I do want to say too that with the work that I do with the Sibling Leadership Conference or Leadership Network, that they do have a conference that will be taking place next year. It's going to be from June 18th through the 20th, and it's planned right now in Jacksonville, Florida. And as we all know, living in COVID times, those things could change. But there also will be a virtual component to this, to that meeting. And I also want to let people know, Jeniece is going to share a resource document that has this information, but also to not only you guys as panelists, but those that are in attendance to this, that this is a free network to connect with, and anyone could sign up by just going to www.siblingleadership.org. And I would just challenge each and every one of us on this panel just to try to get involved in not only that particular organization, but see if there are sibling chapters in your state. The Sibling Leadership Network, they do have 27 chapters. 27 states are chapters for this organization. And I think it would just be a good thing for us to start being in those rooms, to have the dialogue that we want to have, to talk about the importance of not only what's happening with our families, but the Black community and people of color at large. So thanks, Jeniece.
Thank you, Lisa. And that's where I met Don Meyer and Emily, and learned more about that is at the Sibling Leadership Network conference. I went last year, and it was really powerful. But again, I didn't see a lot of people that look like me, so I was not very comfortable. So I back that, Lisa. I would love to welcome anybody to participate. Now, anybody else have anything, Angela, regarding moving forward as a community and seeing if our voices are heard? What does that look like?
So when I think about this in the space that I'm already moving in, when it comes to empowering the parent through the IEP, I solely believe that the IEP is the key to a lot of the issues with making sure that we have an inclusive perspective when it comes to all disabilities and how that looks, because we use that IEP to create that vision statement for the child, to create that vision that the family has as well as the child has for their future. And then we start working towards that. And then you start building different supports around the child to make sure that it is inclusive. So it comes from just making sure that the parents are educated and that they know how that will look, and starting to have that conversation, starting to get them to think about, okay, what do I want for my child? And not only just what they want for their child, but also giving their child voice and a space to say, this is what I want for my life as well. And so having that conversation and having that put in place through the IEP, I'm so passionate about the IEP because I realized in hindsight that that was the key to a lot of the disconnects that my grandmother experienced. And she did the best she could with the knowledge that she had, but it's just a lot of parents don't understand the power that they have to enact change in the community around them using the IEP. It's not just a piece of paper. It literally can change the trajectory of a child's life and the people that support them and the people around them. So that's one way that I'm using, my voice, my platform, and trying to spread the, awareness about inclusion in the community using the IEP itself.
It's funny.
Should I give the acronym for what the IEP stands for? I'm assuming everyone understands or knows what IEP is, so I'm sorry. It is the Individualized Education Plan or Program. It depends on what state you're in. Some people say program, some people say plan, but it's for children with special needs. My sister was in a special needs class and she had IEP, but as I stated, with that age gap, I wasn't really involved at that time to know exactly what her diagnoses were. But the IEP, that's what it stands for. I just wanted to share that as well.
And you know what, Angela, now that you even mentioned that, and that space of knowledge. I mean, honestly, even in our culture, there's a whole, that lack of knowledge even comes from wanting to talk about it and admitting that our child has a disability.
Oh boy, that's
Like,
a whole nother aspect.
Yeah.
That's a stigma even within ourselves, because I've had friends, and even as a parent, it took me a while to even say, let me even reach out for services for my son. Like, I just need to, you don't do that. You don't want to label him. Don't do that to him, and that's what I would get from family members sometimes, or even like my community. So how do you guys, I don't know who wants to take this first, but that stigma in our community about, did your family talk about the disability? Was it something? And what about your friends? Like, as you've grown, is it just me?
It's not just you. No, it's not just you. I know for me, I was always asked, about my brother, and I was always quiet about him because there's so many questions and so many answers, and you really don't always know how to answer it, especially if the person doesn't understand disabilities. You don't know how to answer it. So you just keep it quiet and keep it moving. And that's always what, not out of an embarrassment, but it's just, for me, it was a protection of my brother, because I knew that there were people who didn't understand. Everywhere we went, there were people staring, and they have questions, but they either don't know how to ask them, won't ask them, or they just, take it as, oh, that's somebody else with, in a wheelchair, or, somebody else who can't talk or whatever. However they perceive it, because everybody doesn't perceive it that way. Or some people are genuinely concerned, and they would come up and say, well, what's going on? And then there's a story to it. And then it just, I feel like the education, as I stated, needs to be put out there to where we don't feel that stigma. We don't feel like we can't talk about it, because and then with the IEP, as Angela was stating as well, a lot of parents that I've seen that come into their IEP meetings are not educated on exactly what it's for. And they'll say, hey, we're here, these are the goals that are there, these weren't met, okay, see you next time. They're not educated in saying, or asking questions about, okay, what is the plan, or what are we actually doing, for my child or for my sibling. And I think that everybody needs to be aware of what like she stated, what these are for, and how it can change the trajectory of their life and improve it for a greater quality, rather than we're just meeting every month because we have to. So that's my take on it. I just feel like the education needs to be there. I feel like we should, like this panel now, have the opportunity to speak up and speak out about it, and not feel a certain type of way or feel like you can't talk about it. It's something that needs to be talked about in every home, even if they don't have a disability, so everybody can have that, understanding, or some type of understanding on how to handle these situations, or how to treat these people. Because as we stated, we're all human. We're all human, and we all need to be treated as such. So that education there, that's, I feel, what's needed.
Yeah, and I agree with that, Patricia. I think too that some of the accountability that comes with putting an IP plan.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, some of the accountability that comes with putting together an IP plan also falls with the service providers. And sitting down and having this plan laid out once a year is not enough. I think that there should be some things that are measured throughout the course of the year to see if this person is on target and on track, and how you can support them so that when you get to that next year, it's not just about changing a date. When I first got involved with my brother, it was, like I said, after the situation that happened in the home, but also a time before then, he was part of a day program where they wanted to kick him out because of behavior challenges. And as I said, my mom just always went with the status quo. She got a letter, and they said pretty much that at the end of the week, he has to go to another program. And I wasn't quite sure how to connect the dots, because I wasn't as involved in the time, but I knew something wasn't right there. I started taking a deeper dive, looking at regulations in the state that he lives in. I ended up firing off a letter to DDA. I CC'd any and everybody that I thought that mattered. And it went from having a meeting of just one or two people that were part of his team and my family to 15 people at the table, because they were curious to understand who was the power behind this letter. And when I realized that that power existed, I knew then that I had a purpose to start digging deeper and understanding more what we needed to do to better help serve him. And I started just trying to understand, picking apart his different services and understanding what things were there for him, to where he was able to have 2 different staff support people to have him out and about in the community and connecting him to things that he wanted to do. As you stated earlier, Richard, that it's about him as being the whole person. He has interests in things that he likes to do. So why are we putting state funding behind this just to check a box? And so that has just really been something that I've been really, really passionate about. And I echo the work that you guys are doing in the space in your communities, in wanting to do this for other folks as well. And I want to continue this conversation beyond this roundtable, because I'd love to be able to do some of these things as well.
Absolutely.
You were saying something, Richard?
Oh no, I was just gonna, I appreciate everything that's being shared here. So let me just say that. But one thing that stood out about what Angela was talking about equipping parents around the IEP. Thank you for telling everybody what that means, because I find myself throwing these acronyms out and folks be like, what in the what? So thank you for that. But what I'll say along with what you were saying is that a lot of our families in the African-American community aren't equipped with the understanding that the IEP is a legal document. Like if we just let that sink in, it's not just a plan, it's a legal document.
Exactly.
It means that parent has authority to speak into the scenario regarding their loved one with a disability. And so I feel as though there are some things, of course, that I've helped families work through identity-wise, because I feel like in these settings, I mean, with people that have Black and brown skin, I just feel like right out the gate, you're being taught to not like yourself. There's a self-hatred that's being taught in systems around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I find that the IEP process is very triggering to parents, because it's like, okay, we're already Black. We're already dealing with this and we're dealing with that. And now we got to go in the school, and now I got to fight in the school, and we're having these meetings, and I feel like the school is fighting me. And so I find that, you know, it's very important that we continue to educate our families on what's available, and educate them on how much of a voice they have in these settings. That is something that I found we a lot of times when I support a family, they have not realized their voice. They have not realized what they can do and what they can have. I'll tell you, in other communities, they be working these IEPs. They're in them IEP meetings, and they are squeezing the schools for everything that school has for their loved one. Trust me, every line, every dot, every T is crossed, and their loved one, yeah, they have challenges, but they're getting a lot out of it. So I just want to say I value the work that all of you are doing and that we're doing together. But I just really feel that it is important that we are educating one another as far as what is available for our families and for our kids' futures.
Right. I think those are all very important, and I really appreciate you guys. And with the sake of time, we are at, I mean, this conversation could go on for a long time. And what advice would you give to young siblings? And I'm gonna start with you, Shannon, because you're the youngest on this panel. What advice would you give to pick one, young sibling, a parent, or a service provider?
So one piece of advice I would give for siblings that are younger, that may be new to it, just really be an advocate for your sibling and love your sibling. Like, that's one piece of advice I would give, because you know, a sister and a brother's love is just, you know, unmatched. So just really being an advocate for your sibling, because I know with me, you know, for a few years when my brother was first diagnosed, I was a bit quiet, and it wasn't out of embarrassment, like Ms. Patricia said, it wasn't out of embarrassment. It was just, you know, with everything being new and you still having to educate yourself and still understand the circumstance that's been brought to you. Just really just go in it with the open mind and just love and advocate for your sibling, because, you know, with things going on, you know, other people may not be able to advocate for your sibling. So you just have to be that person to just say, you know what, my sibling is special needs, and yes, my sibling may be, you know, different or unique in their own way. But, you know, as a big sibling or as a younger sibling, I just have to be that person that's going to speak up for him or her when no one else is. I may have to be that person to provide long-term care after, you know, my parents may, you know, go home, or, you know, my grandparents may go home. But just really just being an advocate and loving on your sibling, because, you know, just because they may not, you know, I wouldn't say look like you, but, you know, think or act the way you act or interact the way you interact with other people, it doesn't mean they should be treated, you know, any less as a person. So this is some piece of advice that I would give for siblings. And if they ever need any, you know, anyone to talk to, just feel free to connect with other people that may be in your situation. Because I know for me, I didn't know how to connect, or I didn't know who to connect with. But once I started joining organizations for those, you know, that have special needs siblings, or, you know, individuals in their family that have special needs, and being able to connect with them, you know, when you have questions, you know, feel free to ask. So that's just advice I would give for those that are younger siblings.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you. And that's big. And I'm glad you broke down advocacy, because I think sometimes people even forget, like, what does that even mean? Or what does that look like for you? So I appreciate you sharing what advocacy even looks like from your point of view. So who's next? If you have to give a piece of advice, pick somebody. Young siblings, your parents looking back, or service providers. What would you say? Angela.
When I think back to my childhood and being a young sibling, I think that I would encourage young siblings to start being a voice for their sibling early. I think when I try to think back to that time frame when I was 13, 14, 15 years old, I would, like someone else was saying, I was so zoned in on my life and what I had going on and different things of that nature. And I was just assuming that my sister was getting the supports that she needed when she was going to the classes, or when, you know, just when my grandmother was going to the IEP meetings. I just assumed that everything was being handled and everything was being taken care of. And I just loved on my sister. And I was just a sister. I was just a big sister, kissing and loving and doing girls night, just spending time with her. I didn't try to step over into the role that I'm in now until I became an adult. So now that we have SIB shops and different, you know, organizations that have come into play that target young siblings, I would charge the education system to say, hey, targeting us, the young siblings in the school system, and say, okay, if you have a sibling in your home, this is a great program for you. And then you, as a young sibling, take that upon yourself to say, hey, I need to get an early start on this, become educated so I can advocate and voice, you know, different things that I'm seeing, and be able to attend these IEP meetings with my mom, with my grandmother, with my guardian, whomever it is, versus, you know, just assuming everything is okay. Because as a child, I mean, really think about it. You're not really thinking about these things because it's not something that's right directly in front of you at that time. You're just thinking, you better, I'm just gonna go here. You better not hit my sister. You better not talk about my sister. I'm gonna kick your behind. Meet me on the playground. Meet me at the top of the hill. We're going at it. That's all you're thinking about. That's your advocacy at that point. At that time, you know. And
I appreciate that. That is so true.
Right, you know, you just like, you know, put them up, you know. But when you become an adult, then that's when it flips And you're like, oh, this is how advocacy looks. I'm doing it wrong. Because we're possessive. I'm telling you, I'm protective of my aunts. I'm protective of my sister, siblings. You all know we stand up tall for our sibs. Like we are like here, like standing tall, like come on. And so I think that using that knowledge that I have now, if I could transport myself back then and say, okay, let's start getting active now. I know you may feel like your voice doesn't count, it doesn't matter, that you really don't know what you're talking about, but start educating yourself, start looking for those organizations like Shannon said, start, you know, and then the systems saying, hey, let's introduce these supports to these SIBs now in middle school and high school so they'll know this is available. Versus you become an adult and then you're trying to clear everything while you're trying to, you know, maneuver with your life and you're a mother now, a father now, you're a career professional, and you have to kind of balance all of these things in one versus already knowing what to do.
That makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate that, Angela, because it's not just always at home. The schools have a lot that they could be doing and be helping out. So that goes right into the community. And I'm glad you mentioned that. Now it is 9:19 and we have 2 questions. So I apologize, Richard and Lisa and Patricia, but I really want to get these questions answered. So Emily, I'm gonna ask you, she's gonna come on and she's going to ask us these questions that are in the chat. So Emily.
Sure, thanks guys. So there are a couple of questions in the chat. One is, question for the panelists. I notice that in this person's experience, BIPOC families are more likely to take care of family and not send family, meaning elderly parents or those with disabilities, to assisted living homes. How are you, or have you initiated discussions of future care while maybe feeling the shame and or guilt of not, quote, caring for your own blood? And on top of that, getting past the avoidance of tough conversations.
That's a good one. That's something that actually I'm dealing with now with my family, because my parents are getting older, and so is my brother. But this is the reason why I said I'm opening this facility, because as I stated earlier, we all know our parents aren't going to be here forever, even if our siblings are adults, you know, and some of our parents have transitioned on, and our siblings are still here. There's somebody that's going to have to step up and say, it's going to be me. And I've already taken that responsibility on. I've already communicated it with my family. Everybody, you know, is on one accord with it, but it is a tough conversation, because being a sibling and you have other siblings, it's always, well, this one has this family and this one has this going on, or they have kids, and well, you're the only one that, you know, could do it, or, you know, those conversations are there. And it's not for everyone. I'll say that. Even being a sibling, taking care of a sibling is not for everyone, because everybody doesn't have the capacity, it takes a lot. Mentally, physically, it's a lot. So if you are that sibling, I can say, that has that in you, or you know that this is something that you want to, you speak up when you feel the need to speak up, or just speak up whenever. Let it be known that, hey, this is something that I feel that I can take on, especially if you're a sibling and your parents are looking, you know, for that help. Be that help as much as you can. And I'll say too, just to piggyback on what we were speaking about earlier with siblings, just to communicate. Communication is key. Say how you feel. You know, if it's hard, you know, say it's hard. Don't bottle, because I used to bottle my feelings up all the time, feeling selfish that I had feelings because I had somebody who needed more. So I just used to stay quiet. And, you know, as I grew older in my teens, it just became, you know, sometimes anger and jealousy. And don't let that happen. If you feel some type of way, communicate it. That's the biggest thing. Communication with your family, with your friends, with the community. Communicate everything, and always, you know, make sure that your whole community, your whole family is working on a plan to take care of that sibling that's in need.
I appreciate that, Patricia. That communication is key. Does anybody else have anything for that one question that our audience, the next steps?
To piggyback off of the question, I would just say, whatever is laid up on your heart and whatever you have discussed with your family, you know, just go with that. Don't feel like if you take the steps on putting your sibling into a home, you know, don't feel guilty and don't feel like you don't love your sibling. It just may be a position or a circumstance that you're in to where you're not able to fully give them the care that they need. So, you know, like I said, whatever is laid up on your heart to do and go through with that, just do that. For me personally, I know once my parents get older and they start needing help, I will take my brother in and help my brother. But, you know, whatever decision you make and whatever you think is the best decision for your sibling, just go with that and just continue to be in the best sibling you can be and help out where you can. So that's just my little take on that.
And I would just add real quick, for the sake of time, try your best to be healthy yourself. Take that self-care seriously so that you can step in and help your sibling when that time comes, regardless of how that looks. I feel like pace is something that we all, it's a tricky game because we sometimes want to jump into something and be all in, and then you're burnt out, and then you're not useful, you're not adding value at that point. So I would just say, just keep an eye on your self-care and your health so that you can help your sibling and your family come up with what, you know, the future could look like, or putting supports in place.
Yeah, and I that is so important, Richard. And I actually had to make that tough decision recently to take the step back. I had the cape on and I was trying to save everyone, and I had lost myself. And part of that, I walked away from a job I had for nearly 20 years and had to slowly just try to allow my family to do the things that they needed to do for my brother now, so that I can recharge my energy so that I can be ready again later. But yeah, sometimes you just have to make those tough decisions. And did I feel guilty? Absolutely. I felt resentful first. And then as I had to make that intentional decision to save myself, yeah, it definitely was something that was painful but necessary, I'll say.
Well, that was a really, really powerful question. And as a parent, that's something that is always on my mind. What's next? And what does that look like? And does my children feel this burden at the age of 13 and 14? Because I can see them trying to do a lot and be that second mom or that parentification and doing these things that they don't necessarily need to be doing right now. So I've learned so much from each one of you, and just you guys sharing with us. I'm not sure, did Emily say there was one more question from the audience? Emily?
Yep, there was one more question about, has your role as a sibling changed in this time of COVID?
Quick answer for me, no, not at this time.
I can speak on that. For me, with my brother still being in school and trying to have to do virtual school, we've kind of like as a family had to, you know, just try to help out where we can, making sure that he's getting on his classes and stuff. So I would say it's changed, but it hasn't really. But at the same time, it has, because we're used to, you know, everyone's just going to school and then we come back home as a family and, you know, we just repeat that cycle. But with us still being, you know, in quarantine in a way and just having to do virtual school, I know it can be a lot of times like on my parents and even on myself, with me trying to still do my work and my parents still trying to work their jobs, and then trying to make sure my brother is on his classes at a certain time. It kind of has been a lot, but we've done a good job making sure that we've all worked together to make sure that he's getting the tools and making sure that he's on his classes and learning what he needs to learn. And yeah, that's what I can say for my spill on that question.
Well, thank you, Shannon, for saying that. Do you feel supported? I just have that one question. Like, I know we talked about your brother and COVID. How do you feel? How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Virtual school is different simply because it's not how I planned my senior year, but it's different. But one thing about me that I can say that I'm glad that I'm a person that I can adapt to change quickly. I'm just not so stuck on a schedule. Like, of course, I'm always have a routine in my head that I always think, you know, should be followed. But, you know, with the ongoing pandemic, I just had to, you know, adjust, because this may be what my college looked like. I may be in my dorm doing the same thing. So I feel like I'm supported. My parents, every week, you know, I just kind of talk to my mom. She comes upstairs and we just kind of have a talk every now and then we go out as a family and get dinner and just talk. So I feel supported. Like I said, this is exactly, you know, this is not how I planned my senior year to go, but you know, everything happens for a reason. I feel like God, well, with my religion, I feel like just God places us in situations because he may see we can grow or we just need to learn. So just kind of charge it to the game.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate each one of you. Emily, you can come join us back in. We are at 9:28, and I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I appreciate everybody for being a part of this first panel. I really hope that we do this again one day. I hope that this is not the end of the discussion that we're having. I loved hearing from you all. Like, truly, I appreciate you from a organization, the Special Needs Siblings organization, from just me as a parent and learning your hearts and your different perspectives and your backgrounds. And my heart goes out to each one of you. And I really appreciate you all being here today. I appreciate all the guests being here today. And we are definitely going to be sending you a PDF in an email because we cannot drop it in this chat, unfortunately. But if you check your emails to everybody that has logged in, we're going to send you an email with some sibling resources. I'm going to give you some information about the Sibling Leadership Network, any resources that we have found, and then on the bottom there's going to be a link. If you know of resources for siblings, click that link and share it with us so that we can be able to spread that. Emily, is there anything you'd like to say?
You know, we're already getting comments in the chat. When is the next one going to be? And so I think I speak for a lot of people when I say thank you sincerely from the bottom of my heart for being with us tonight, for sharing your insights, your experiences, your perspectives, and your stories. It's been such a valuable experience. And, you know, we do a lot of adult sibling panels in our work at the Sibling Support Project. And with every single one of them, I learned so much. And tonight has just been an unforgettable experience. And so thank you guys so much for sharing so much of your lives with us. I just put in the chat the link to a survey. If you guys want to continue the conversation, if the folks who are watching this found this to be of value, we'd love for you to fill out that survey. Just kind of weigh in on how we can move forward, and if we are interested in continuing the conversation as a community of people who are dedicated to making sure that siblings of color have equal access to information and support, and that we can all start building bridges with each other, you know. And this panel started with a conversation. And honestly, it was kind of an awkward conversation, but it was a conversation that we knew needed to happen to be able to move forward together. And so, again, we hope this is the first step of many that really changes the landscape of what sibling support looks like. So thank you all for being part of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.